the Mental Health Minute today is about gratitude. And I learned about this as I've talked about before. A couple years ago, I struggled with, some anxiousness in certain situations. And one resource that military pilots have, and anybody, if you do family counseling for family issues, that is very safe. It's not a mental health thing. It's not documented. It's just your ability to talk to somebody and get some exercises and tools to help you work through various things. And the military has that in squadrons. Deuce, do you guys have that in the Guard? Is that something? Do you guys have like a counselor in the squadron that you can go talk to offline?
On base, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great tool. And when I talked to them, one of the things they talked about was gratitude. And you're like, well, what's gratitude, right? Things are going poorly. Why should I be grateful? And what I learned from this is that when your brain, we as pilots, one of our survival instincts is to try to look at the negative in everything, right? That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to look at master cautions and warnings and how's this plane going to kill me today? And law enforcement, firefighters, it's all the same thing. But gratitude kind of rewires your brain and you start to think about, why am I grateful? And I was talking to my new boss today, actually. He's a great guy. He went through a long period where he wasn't able to fly. And he had somebody tell him about gratitude and how they did a study, and over a long period, they did MRIs. And after a couple weeks of just writing down with pen and paper, what am I grateful for? Picking 3 things every day. I'm grateful for, my dog. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for this and that. And every day being something new. After 2 weeks, it kind of rewires your brain, because now you're starting to think of it as a game and you're starting to look for things that makes you grateful and happy versus looking at the negative. Because when we look for the negative in flying, it might be something that is useful, but in everything else, it is probably one of the worst things you can have, because it just puts you in the pit of despair. So he talked about, over this period, he realized that it was actually making him more positive, and eventually he was able to overcome his illness. And we underestimate the power of positive thinking to the point that not only do we not show enough gratitude when things are going wrong, because that's obviously the hardest part, because, it's hard to be grateful when you're just trying to struggle to survive. The other day, I lost Kaiser and I'm just sitting here going, this sucks, but I'm grateful I've got Luna. I'm just grateful for the small things. But it's also tough when things are going well, right? Because once you're happy, it's very hard to go back and go, well, I'm grateful for this. But that level of gratitude, Andrew Bernard said it best. I wish somebody would tell me when it's the good times before the good times were over, because you have to be grateful in the moment when, you're flying that Viper, you're flying that F-18, because the next thing you know, it's gone and you never got to enjoy it because you were too busy being negative or hating some other thing versus just relaxing and enjoying it. So I think it's important for mental health. I'll throw this over around the room about gratitude, but I think it's one of the best coping mechanisms with life in general, is just going, you know what? Yeah, things suck, but I'm grateful for these little things every day, because every day, the fact that I'm still breathing is a good thing. Gonky?
Yeah, I'm sure people have heard, have an attitude of gratitude. So, the nice thing is every day you get to wake up and choose, are you going to be thankful or are you going to just be angry, right? So I think, remember last weekend with Wags, he had that terrible accident when he was a young man, and look what he did. He focused his energy on, still his passion, took a different route, and he created, one of the most awesome fighter pilot games, that's ever been created. So, yeah, like I said before, I'm a Christian, not to get all Bible-y, but your blessings, man, you've got blessings you don't even know about. If you're watching or listening to this podcast, you have technology available to you that is a blessing, right? So, there's a lot of people out there that are, that are, I'm not going to say having a harder time than you, but I'm always trying to focus on what's good. To the point where we don't have TV in the house, because I just try to control like what goes into my mind, right? So if you're seeing a lot of negative, you tend to focus on the negative. I try to read things and study things that are positive, make me better. So that's just, how I begin to act and feel. If you walk around with your chest out, shoulders rolled back, you feel pretty good. If you walk around with your shoulders slumped forward, sad face, you probably feel sad. So all little things, that I try to do myself. And a lot of this is from, I read a lot of self-help books too, because I'm always trying to better myself. But gratitude is huge. It's really what it is your perspective on life, in my opinion. And writing down, 3 things every day is a very good reminder. I've actually done that, and it does work. I mean, it's a reminder every day. You put it to paper, and you're just like, oh wow, no kidding. Hey, I've got 2 beautiful kids. I remember a time when I didn't think we were going to have kids. So it's just, you start focusing on those things, and it'll change your mood and your mindset. But that's all I got.
Deuce. Oh.
I think it goes along with humility quite a bit, to follow up with Gonky, whose response I thought was pretty incredible, to be honest with you. You never know like how long that this is going to last. If you're going to have a bad day and become spatially disoriented or G-lock, flying, like these things happen. But always showing that humility and the gratitude towards those around you and those that you work with for what they do. The book that this reminded me of is Drive by Daniel Pink. It's a great book, but he talks a lot about the 3 things that people like look for professionally and personally are mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Purpose being the relevant one here, where that gratitude, having that positive mindset almost gives you that sense of purpose to keep you going along.
Yeah. I mean, it's not about being, you don't have to be manic. You don't have to everything's always sunshine. I mean, there's going to be bad days, and there's going to be days where you might not think you're grateful, but those are the most important days to find the gratitude. And I'm guilty of this. I'm not preaching or saying, these are things that I work on, or I'm trying to work on, since the last couple of years. But in order to be successful and resilient, because we talked about that last week, you have to find the good in what you're doing, or else you're just going to be Eeyore and have that black cloud over your head.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I traveled to Vietnam and saw some very poor people, and they were the happiest people I've ever seen. And it was just, they were just grateful for everything. They were grateful that I was even there, like just touring their home. I mean, you come to the States and you don't have to go very far to see a lot of people who are not very happy, and they live in arguably, one of the greatest countries. I think it's the greatest country in the world, but
definitely.
But yeah, it's wild, man. And it's a choice. Those people wake up to be happy. And I try to, like you said, life's not always happy, but I mean, having that attitude of gratitude is very important.
Doug, you got anything to add?
No, I've had the pleasure of the last several episodes of sitting here with my training and experience in mental health and seeing 3 or 4 people really tie it up neatly. You guys have got it figured out. You're passing on the good word. So it does occur to me that maybe mindfulness is going to be a good topic somewhere down the road, because there's a lot of references to that. Pay attention.
Well, we'll add those to the thing. But here's something I'm going to give my weekly pitch to, because this just happened this morning. If you are thinking about doing something, you're in the dumps, life's not going great, you can't find that gratitude, reach out to somebody, talk to your friends, talk to your wingman, talk to your buddy, reach out 988, 911 if you have to. There are many assets available to you, but do not make a temporary problem a permanent one. We lose too many veterans. We lose too many good people. We lose too many people in general to suicide. Just happened in my community today. We learned of a murder suicide, and that happened to be I wasn't working this morning, but that actually happened to be a house that I've been to before. So it's obviously avoidable. I don't know the details, and I'm obviously not going to speculate, but the biggest thing is we want you to get through what you're going through, and there's nothing that can't be overcome. There's a light at the other side. There is an afterlife, and it is something that you can overcome. So just because it seems like the walls are closing in doesn't mean that you can't get help. So use the assets available. There's a lot of tools in the community and in the nation, especially for veterans. Military One Source is another good one. But there's also a crisis hotline for suicide prevention and even a veterans hotline. So please, get the help that you need, and you'll learn about stuff like this. And that's a lot of stuff we've talked about is because good counselors and good people, good friends like Doug have said, hey, why don't you try this? And it works. All right, cool. Good talk. Doug, do we have any others that we need that I'm missing?
Actually, we do, and it kind of just falls right in with what you just said. Cludris said, lost my mother a year ago last Friday. I find myself having panic attacks when I'm driving to work since. Not sure if it's anxiety. Everything Mover just said goes directly to that. There's nothing to stop you from getting professional help, and anxiety and or panic attacks are very treatable.
You cannot be anxious if you're singing.
My singing makes people anxious, but you make a good point.
Well, you can't be anxious because your brain can't do both. So put on some Cardi B and start singing some WAP, and you will not be anxious anymore. Doesn't have to be Cardi B. But Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. I was actually talking to my boss about this today. There's actually a phenomenon where your brain can't multitask that. And if you're singing, you can't. You start doing other things.
Yeah, I couldn't resist the joke because you're a good singer and I'm a terrible one, but you are correct. There's a lot of different focusing exercises to deal with anxiety that revolve around that type of thing. Just pointing at things and naming them. I don't know if that would work in a fighter jet, though.
It would, but again, Cardi B, that's also pointing at things. There's some never mind. All right, too much levity, which we need more of. Okay, cool. Well, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Thank you for that, but sorry for your loss. I lost both parents, and it's, people say, well, it's easier when you're an adult. I lost my mom when I was 12, and it was harder to lose my dad when I was 30. And even harder to lose my dogs at 40. I mean, grief does not get easier the older you get. And it's about having a support network and having things that you can be grateful for that get you through that.
And no one else gets to quantify your grief for you. Nobody gets to say, hey, that's something you shouldn't be upset about. If it hurts you, it hurts you, and you need help.
Doug, you and I have talked about that too. There's also no right way or wrong way. Because I've gone through this in general where I felt like I wasn't sad enough at certain points, or I was too sad at certain points. And you and I've talked about it. Just because you're not sad now doesn't mean it's not going to hit you later. And just because you're too sad now doesn't mean it's too sad. That there's no right answer. You are going to feel your feels until there's no way for that until they're out, until you're over it. And you're never going to be truly over it. You're just going to learn to live with it.